Good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning, this beautiful day that we have here. We appreciate all of you being here, and thank you so much for all of our judges. So welcome to the 8th Annual InNOLEvation Challenge. 8 years. This is great. And the 3rd year that we're hosting it in our beautiful Jim Moran building here downtown. It's been a long journey for our student teams. We've had 12 workshops that they've attended and 2 elimination rounds to get to our 8 finalist teams competing today. This competition is open to students from all over campus, so we're very proud of that. $4,000 prizes will be awarded to the Jim Moran Challenge Top Social Venture, Most Innovative, Spirit of Entrepreneurship, Most Viable, Most Scalable, and the Best Overall Winner of the Mark K. Scott Infinity Fund's $10,000 first place prize. All of our teams competing today will receive at least $500 for making it to the final round. We will also be selecting teams today that will represent Florida State University at the ACC InVenture Prize at North Carolina State University and the Governor's Cup statewide business plan competition at Florida Atlantic University. So we're thrilled that everybody is here. We're very excited for our student teams. And all we want to do is say thank you so very much to all of you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Susan. Excuse me. We're very grateful for all of the judges that helped us get to this point, and to the 7 judges who are joining us today. I will go ahead and introduce them. So after graduating from FSU, Gary Brand, founded Brand for Land Advisors in 1986. The firm awards an annual scholarship to an FSU student interested in a career in business consulting. He serves as a trustee for the National Small Business Association, where the duties include helping formulate their positions on national regulations affecting entrepreneurs. Gary created an app called Biz Impact, which will allow business owners to express their economic impact on their community. Jody Chase is a strategic thinker who can execute. She understands stakeholders, communicates objectives, builds and motivates coalitions and teams. She evaluates early stage businesses and positions them for growth. Jody conceived and built a novel research platform for a global hedge fund, grew the business and successfully exited. She serves as CEO for a pre-revenue cutting edge technology company based here in Tallahassee. She's an advisor for a fast-growing cannabis processing company. Tracy Cohen is a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and she is a 2nd-generation owner and president of Target Print and Mail. Mandy Cohen serves as the audit director for the Florida Division of Emergency Management, Office of Inspector General, where she strives to enhance public trust in the government. Ms. Cohen is the graduate of the Jim Moran, earning dual bachelor's degree in entrepreneurship and finance from the Florida State University in 2013. She also earned a Juris Doctor degree from FSU's College of Law during her time at FSU. Ms. Cohen owned and operated a small cleaning company in Tallahassee. Ms. Cohen is originally from Chicago and graduated from the Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy, IMSA, in 2009. IMSA is one of the top high schools in the country, known internationally for its notable technology alumni, including founders of YouTube, PayPal, SparkNotes, OkCupid, and others. Ms. Cohen has worked for the state of Florida for almost 7 years in her current role, and she is responsible for supervising and performing internal audits, reviews, and investigations related to state funds and operations. Mark McNeese is the founder of Red Eye Coffee, a Newman's Own Foundation Fellow, and an entrepreneur in residence at the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. Mark believes in the power of commerce to create positive, sustainable change, both locally and globally. Now, throughout her career, Elizabeth Scott Co-founded or was a seed investor in over 20 startups and early stage companies encompassing financial services, online benefits, sports performance, furniture sales, motorcycle manufacturing and distribution, and investor relations. She was president of NeoVest Trading, one of Wall Street's premier electronic trading businesses, which was ultimately sold to JP Morgan in 2005. Previously, she was co-manager of the Infinity Fund in Atlanta, Georgia. She still trades future and biotech stocks 24/5. Mrs. Scott. Mrs. Scott graduated from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill School of Business. She is actively involved in furnishing multiple communities and nonprofits throughout the Big Bend via her company, Collected Home. She and her husband, Mark, have three children ages 19 to 26, including a current Seminole. David White is a graduate of FSU and a partner and CPA with Carr, Riggs, and Ingram LLC. He helps nonprofits and entrepreneurs in their auditing, tax, and consulting needs. Now that I've whizzed through all of that really quickly, thank you all so much for spending your time today judging these promising student entrepreneurs. And now we'll go ahead and get started with the reason we're all here with the first team, which is Sway Aid.
Good morning, everyone. We're Sway Aid. We're searching wisely for adolescents and youth. This is our mantra. Today, D'Angelo, Melanie, and I will be presenting. So our mission is to use technology to combat human trafficking. Human trafficking is a $150 billion industry. It is a very fast-growing criminal enterprise, and $99 billion of this $150 billion industry comes from commercial sexual exploitation. So around 50,000 people are smuggling to the US to get trafficked around the United States. So let me put you into perspective. Every 2 minutes, there's a child getting ready for sexual exploitation, which here comes, we've got some numbers of victims that were reported here in Florida in 2019, which came out to be 466 victims, which 322 of these were sexual trafficked. And these are only the ones that have been reported, and there's many out there that we don't know about. So we've been working with the police department, and they've been helping us. And one of the reasons that a lot of these victims cannot be saved is because they are not kept in the same city for more than a week. When we talked to the Department of Children and Families, they told us about this case of this 13-year-old that when she was saved, she had over 1,000 transactions, and they couldn't save her early in the stage because they kept moving her from Tallahassee to Tampa, to Orlando, to Miami, to Jacksonville, and so on, and never in the same routes. So from there, we determine our customers. So our primary customers are going to be the law enforcement agencies. They can be local, state, and federal. Right now, we're focusing in our local with the Tallahassee Police Department. And from there, we recognize our secondary customers, which would be nonprofits that combat human trafficking, such as the Big Bend Coalition Against Human Trafficking, Sisters Embrace, or Open Doors. From there, we establish our needs. We've done research with the Tallahassee Police Department, as well as the Department of Children and Families and Open Doors. And from there, we determine our user needs. We want to make sure that our technology can blend seamlessly in public. It can be visible for any adolescents or youth. It is user-friendly, meaning that we will have it in different languages depending on the area that it is placed, such as in Miami, we'll have it in English, Spanish, and Korean. We also want to make sure the reading level is good for everyone. We want to gather also as much as information as possible, build a profile on our victims as well as the authorities so they can have that information. And also we want to alert authorities when this technology is activated. And from there, we determine our new solution.
Through the help of our partners during our research and development phase, we collected information to develop the best functions for our technology in order to save these victims as well as get them rescued. So our technology will first attract these victims. With the help of a human trafficking survival victim through the Open Doors nonprofit organization, we designed this poster that contains welcoming and persuasive terms. Due to these, a lot of cases, these victims suffer from Stockholm syndrome, and in that their traffickers are intimate partners, such as their parents, lovers, which is also known as pimps, And we will also attract them with symbolic images that pertain to their situation. And our poster will have a list of instructions in order for them to provide our technology with consent in order to get them the help that they need. Next, we have our activate function. Prior to getting into that, our technologies will be implemented in trafficking hotspot areas such as gas stations, bus stops, and other areas. In order to activate our technology, victims will place their fingerprint onto our fingerprint scanner, and our system will be linked to a missing victims database. And if there is a match, this will be provided to law enforcement, and if there isn't, our system will build a new profile for this victim. As well as upon activation, a disguised GPS tracker will be provided to this victim. We are going to get into more details in the upcoming slide. So our next function would be alerting law enforcement immediately, and then hoping that they rescue these victims in time to get to the scene. And worst case scenario, if they don't, we will provide them with the disguised GPS tracker that can be disguised as a soda can, vending machine, snack, or any product that we're familiar in seeing in society. This is a visual display of our prototype GPS tracker going around the Capitol that we used earlier this week. And this is what it will look like for law enforcement to track the victim. And then we will also have facial recognition implemented in our technology to provide law enforcement with a visual image. This will also be linked to a missing victim database to provide law enforcement. And an overview of our technology is that after attracting these victims, they will activate our technology by placing their fingerprint onto the fingerprint scanner. And as soon as they receive the disguised GPS tracker, it will activate our interactive display that contains artificial intelligence capabilities in order to detect if this missing victim is linked to the missing victim database. And if not, a new profile will be created for this victims to provide to law enforcement in order to save the victim. And for our business development milestone, we're currently at our prototype and development phase, where we should be done in about a month from now. And after finalizing our product, we plan on implementing it and providing the Tallahassee Police Department and combating this criminal enterprise in order to save these victims and further expanding out throughout the United States and providing other law enforcement departments with it.
From there, we move on to our financial sources. So the FAMU FSU College of Engineering has provided us with some funds to be able to create a prototype. From there, we will move on and keep building our prototype to make it better through government grants, donations, service organizations, law enforcement organizations, as well as business and nonprofit competitions. So this is why you should invest in us. This is a very big problem around the world, a very big problem around the United States, a very big problem here at your houses and your homes. Today, your family is safe. Tomorrow, maybe you don't know. So let's stop focusing about today and try to make a better solution for tomorrow for these victims from a lifetime slavery. Also, our investigators that we work with hand on hand are here today, Elizabeth and Paul, and they gave us a quote that keeps inspiring us every day to keep working harder and harder on this project. So thank you.
I had a question for you. How did the victims get the disguised GPS trackers in their hand?
So we decided to make our GPS tracker. We want to make it as small as possible. So these vending machines will be placed in hotspot areas such as bathroom stalls, where they usually are alone, because when we interview them, they're usually alone, and they're going to be able to get the GPS tracker and put it and hide it. And our ultimate goal will be to make a GPS tracker that they can just swallow as a pill. But I mean, that we will have to work with the biomedical department.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a comment and a question. First of all, I really admire that you're taking on this problem. That's terrific. My comment for you guys is you present us with the problem and then you immediately jumped into the customers. Give us the solution right after you give us the problem, because you have a very innovative solution. So present us the problem, the solution, and then the customers is my 2 cents. So how are you going to address false positives and vandalism?
So what we thought, we originally wanted to put a button, but if you put a fingerprint, you will have your information. And they also, the second activation display, which a camera is going to be recording. So the police as well, like, will have that information so they can charge them with criminal, whatever, for calling 911. It's like the blue lights that we have on campus, that if you call, it's a criminal if you don't have any issues. From there, we might be working on implementing, instead of one touch, maybe 3 touches, that only the victims will be able to read, because we're going to have that poster installed in the stalls. But at the end of the day, there's going to be some falses that we can take care of.
I have a question. Is this technology supposed to, is your company positioning itself to develop the technology and then sell it? Or would you also be the ones managing this database? I mean, like, if it's taking a picture and storing the fingerprints and all that, what would be your role, and how would that be passed on to other customers and everything?
So we're still in that developing phase. We don't know what's gonna happen. But basically, we will try to work as much as possible with the police department and share with them, because they're one of our main points that we need to, like, make sure they get the victims, or they get these profiles. And we also need their help to, like, get all this database from all the missing children and adults. So it might be a half and half.
Also, after including the testing phase of our prototype, we would like to provide Tallahassee Police Department with our final product to definitely test it out, and then making sure that it works the way we vision it. And then the next phase would be looking into the pricing of our product, and then selling it to other law enforcement departments around Florida, and then expanding out throughout the United States. But our main goal is definitely making sure that our cause for this technology is fulfilled and saving these victims.
And thinking long term, in what we're doing, we can help not cure, but rescue victims of human trafficking. But if you think in a long-term goal, you could apply this device many different areas. So say you have a girl who's in a bar and she got roofied. Sometimes they have notes in the bathroom where it says, if you feel like you're in danger, go to the bartender, order this drink. Well, what if the girl doesn't make it back? So if we implement this device not only for human trafficking, but for other scenarios like that, just to rescue people who feel in danger, we will be able to save more people.
So I really like the idea of the pill versus the other devices, because it seems that the other, criminals are very smart. They're very cagey. And I would think a lot of people would be inhibited to take something that looked like a Coke can, because it could end up, more tragic than what their life already is. So I don't know how much you've investigated that, and how viable a pill is, and how long it could stay in the system, and how much time, it really takes to track people, and how that, could you talk about that a little?
Yeah, so that was one of our initial concepts when we were working on this device. We spoke with our advisor, Dr. McConomy, and he has interaction with certain biomedical engineering professors at school who know of more complex ways to do that. However, our biggest thing right now is our money. So we were allotted $2,000 for this project. In theory, if we had much more, we would be able to get the pill as small as possible. And in theory, once we get it small enough, we would be able to incorporate and work with these biomedical engineers in order to create a pill that could be swallowed safely in the system and stay there for hours, days, however long it takes.
Could you talk a little bit more about your financial model? How much would be allocated, I guess, per person that uses this? What's the budget? Who's paying for it?
So for our financial model, in terms of when we get to sell the product, or as of right now, like developing the prototype?
How do you envision keeping it financially sustainable?
So, so we, in the future, we plan on applying for federal, state, and local grants, and also utilizing funding from business competitions. We're competing in, other than this business competition, we're competing in mini mod, Scopes competition, as well as CCU, and we plan to utilize this funding and to develop a final product of our disguised GPS tracker and hopefully moving on to the pill. But we plan on putting a price on the actual product to sell at a time per police department, but we're not quite sure due to the fact that currently our disguised GPS tracker for the prototype is going to be pretty big. But like whenever we get to the final size of a micro GPS tracker, we will determine the cost of that. We're not too sure what the price would be, but our current vision is providing law enforcement with a one-time price for the technology based on each location. So for instance, let's say we're starting off to implement our products at one gas station, that it'll be a one-time price for that specific gas station. But if Tallahassee Police Department we would like additional, more of our technology, so putting a price per technology that we provide with them, but we're not sure what the exact cost would be as of yet.
How are you going to address replenishing the GPS vending machines?
So that's going to be something that we're going to have to plan out later in the process. Currently, how the process goes is that the police will capture and get the GPS tracker from the victim at some point. We're still trying to figure out that scenario of how we can replenish it back in, because in theory, based on our design, it should be as simple as using the fingerprint scanner, opening a door and putting it back into the box. However, we will have to research more into that, whether we hire some sort of service person to do a simple task like that, or whether the police would be willing to insert it back in for the case of their own progress. That's something that we're going to have to do further research on.
I think what you're doing is great, and I'd like to hear a little more on what prompted you to start this initiative.
So technically, I worked with my advisor, Dr. McConomy, and made this project. We're in a capstone class right now, and there was a preliminary class for this where what our idea for that design was to essentially, the blue light poles, bring those onto a portable scale into cities that don't have safety resources like that. And then we looked into other possibilities for ways we could help people. So this project was inspired by something called an ANAR lenticular lens. So are you familiar with like holographic baseball cards where you look from different positions, you see two different images? So that sign essentially works like that, where children of a certain height could see one image where it gave essentially a phone number to call if you were hurt, and adults saw a different image that wasn't sketchy. But the issue with that was that it relied so much on the children's cognitive memory to memorize an 8-digit or a 7-digit phone number, and then to find a phone and then to call. And it really took a lot of courage and put the safety in their hands. And we wanted to bring a device and create a device that we could put into the hands of a victim that if they need help now, they can get help now. And we really just wanted to bridge that gap.
Have you looked into any patents on ingestible pills to GPS, for GPS tracking?
We haven't looked into patents yet, but that's something we're hoping to do with money we get from competitions. Not only that, we also want to look into patents on perhaps feminine hygiene products, perhaps inserting the GPS tracker into devices such as that. So for an example, if we made a GPS tracker that could be used as a tampon, that is the kind of hygiene product that victims of this class use. So it would be the least sketchy area. So essentially the short answer is, once we get more money, we're going to be investing into these patents to see if we can patent a multitude of ideas such as this.
And this is Logic. I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves.
In 2003, the sports industry was changed forever when Michael Lewis published his book, Moneyball. In Moneyball, he outlines how Billy Beane, the general manager of the Oakland A's, is using prospective data to make better decisions for his team in the present and the future, signing players at a discount that were considered washed up and winning games. Fast forward to today, and professional sports teams spend millions of dollars on their data analytics programs. GMs and coaches are seen as falling behind if they're not using technology and analytics in their solutions. I recognized this when I came to Florida State, And so I started the Sports Analytics Club in the fall of 2018 to bring this digital transformation to FSU athletics. We currently have 80 members who work with 61 teams as sort of a consulting group in the digital transformation here at FSU. We also organized the first ever Sports Analytics Summit at FSU, where we were headlined by Coach Norvell and Coach Bowden and a number of other industry leaders. I'm Aaron Goldstein. I'm a co-founder of AthLogic because I want to democratize sports analytics.
In the middle is our lead developer, Raghav Gundverpu, who unfortunately wasn't able to make it today due to a work conflict. And my name's Jackie Levy. And today we're going to speak about how we're looking to break into a multi-billion-dollar industry and make it accessible to teams at all levels in high school football sports and all sports. So AthLogic currently has two platforms, a business-to-business and a business-to-consumer application. So our business-to-consumer application takes advantage of patterns that occur within a football game in order to streamline the manual data entry process of events and plays within that game. And for only $5, you're able to get access to this. So unless your organization has hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on an AI camera solution for your home field only, you're more than likely going to be manually entering the data. And the traditional route to do this is with pen and paper. So in a side-by-side test, when we had participants using a pen and paper and the other one using the AthLogic app, those using the AthLogic app not only felt more comfortable in the data they were recording, watching unedited high school football, but the data after further analysis was proven to be more accurate.
Because of the network that we were able to build through the Sports Analytics Club, we've had the opportunity to pitch this idea to a number of amateur sports teams, specifically in high school, who are all interested and comfortable paying $5 a month to implement sports analytics into their teams for the first time ever. We also had the opportunity to work with FSU football and last year's coaching staff. Richard Vega, who is their head data analyst, was interested in using this just to streamline his data collection, as most of the time analytics are only run after the game, when you could actually record data and then get access to that data in-game through AthLogic. We understand that there's a coaching change, and Coach Norvell actually headlined the summit. We look forward to actually partnering with FSU football in the future moving forward.
So our B2B side is taking advantage of the fact that we own all the consumer data. So because of this, and because we're recording event and play-by-play details within the game, we're not only taking the cumulative stats from these football games for games and seasons, but we're looking at the individual players, how they're performing throughout the entire games and their careers. This is going to be a revolutionary new tool in how college scouts and recruits look to bring on new talent onto their teams, and how these new talented players will actually impact their team's performance when they come onto the collegiate level. And when looking at our competitors, Max Preps and Huddle, which have no barriers of entry, meaning that many times high school players looking to get recruited will artificially inflate their numbers, AthLogic's data is trustworthy because the data being input is being used by people who are looking to improve the entire team's performance and not just one player's individual performance. So how do we make this happen? Well, for testing, we actually did it on a mobile web application, but we're currently rolling out a native iOS and Android application. Our backend's been developed in C++, and our database on page 2 of the pamphlet that I handed out, you can see a condensed ERD of our database, which our full ERD actually tracks 288 attributes. But an important table is the meta table, because this is critical for our growth and tracking new attributes as we add it with new features. This is all connected through PHP, and I want to make a quick analogy to Facebook and their value within data. So Facebook has no value without its users. Theoretically, I could go in and recreate Facebook's entire platform. But as AthLogic's continuing to mature its brand, as we take on new teams, and as those teams continue to use our platform for more games, and as those games see more plays, the amount of data that AthLogic has grows, and with that, so does our value, because we're a data company.
As Jackie said, we're a data company and we're a software as a service company, which means we're not very capital intensive or human capital intensive. In fact, most of our costs don't come until after year 2, we project. We believe we'll have to build out a sales team at that point. But as I said earlier, we believe that $5 a month, or the people we've spoken to, for $5 a month are comfortable implementing sports analytics for the first time into their solutions. And then for our business-to-business application, we believe universities and recruiters will be comfortable paying $5,000 a year for our data and then for our solution for them as well. as they already spend about $250,000 a year per assistant coach who are currently responsible for recruiting. This will open up a number of new doors and prove accurate in opening up new markets for them as well.
So as I mentioned earlier, this is just the foundation for a much bigger brand and a much bigger image. We're eventually going to incorporate IoT into our solution, and that's going to take the human element out of data analytics. So we're basically going to automate it. And as the price of IoT development and manufacturing goes down, we're actually going to replace our manual data entry and automate the process completely. We're also going to replicate our streamlined data entry process into other sports to enter new markets. And we're going to take the experiences that we've learned consulting the FSU athletics to become the go-to consulting sports analytics group in the world. So as you make the tough decision on what teams you want to award the grand prize, I want to remind you that you're investing in our team, a team that's proven to have a passion for the product it's developing, but also the work ethic to establish the Sports Analytics Organization and the inaugural Sports Analytics Summit. You're investing in our brand, a brand that's scalable, and it's coming at a time where more and more coaches, players, and fans are understanding the importance of incorporating analytics into their decision-making. And finally, you're investing in our data that's insightful, reliable, and valuable. Thank you, and we look forward to painting a better picture for the next 10 minutes of questions and answers.
Hey, Jackie?
Yeah.
Hey, right here.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
First, a compliment. I liked how you broke down all your costs through very specific segments. What I didn't get is the app completed where I could download it from the App Store right now?
No, it's deployed internally right now for testing. We expect to have the iOS and Android applications on both their respective stores out within the next month. So
Okay.
we're just going through some QA testing.
Okay. And one other quick question. What's been the total cost to develop the app to this point?
Around $50.
Wow. Very nice.
Thank you.
So I have a couple of questions, but I don't want to ask too many. But I'll just ask two, and then everybody else, I'm sure, will have the other ones. What are the barriers to entry for your competition, and how did you validate your pricing?
Right. So for barriers to entry, we currently would be kind of first to market here, as Jackie kind of alluded to. There's only being handwritten in high school sports right now. There's no other application. Theoretically, another company could come in and try to mimic what we're doing by streamlining the data collection process. But we believe by being first to market, and by providing new features as we go along, and our easy-to-use platform will retain customers. For pricing, we wanted to make it as affordable as possible. We believe that our larger revenue streams are going to actually come through the business-to-business application. In order to do that, we need scale. And so $5 a month, it was just kind of a survey that we had with high school teams, and they were comfortable paying $5 a month to implement this for the first time for their teams.
So why charge the high school? It seems like the money is in the B2B, and the money is in the data that you're going to collect. So why charge high school teams at all?
Right. That's something that we played around with. It's kind of just an initial cost, an initial startup for us, right? Those costs aren't going to go up, the $5. And we're comfortable actually negotiating that as we implement the beta testing. The problem is once we start implementing IoT, there is a fixed cost to it. And so we do need to charge for that. And so we're kind of just preparing for that moment as well.
But if I'm understanding, your product is the data of these up and coming high school students, right? I'm struggling with the idea of the hassle of $5 a month or $60 a year versus the billing, the keeping up with that, and then that just being a barrier for what you need, that data. It may be something that you might want to reconsider and build it. And on the other side, for FSU, picking up on this and having access to this data, $5,000 may be really cheap.
Right, and we totally acknowledge that it's very cheap, but as our value does grow and as we take on more teams, we're gonna increase that price. So initially it would be around 5,000. And as we take on new teams and at the high school level, we can start charging more. So we can, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So that $5,000 that came from like an analysis that we ran where we kind of broke into the Miami market and the Florida area. And so like the initial cost would be $5,000 a month for like this initial Southeast market of mainly Florida, right? And then as we break into new markets, grow in the Southeast, become more relevant to every SEC and ACC school, that price increases as we get more data. Yeah.
So I don't get it. And that's just me not knowing sports, not having sons. I do not get it. And not that my children don't play, my daughters don't play sports, but it's just, so for me, explain to me how this works. Like, am I sitting in the stands doing stats for you no, well, who is actually entering the stats?
So the user experience of this app is pretty simple if you think about it. So the first person to touch the ball in a football game tends to usually be the quarterback, but it doesn't necessarily matter what their number is or their position. They're going to have a set amount of options. So they can pass it, they can hand it off or run with it. And then based on those options, new options emerge.
Okay.
So if you pass it and it's successful, was it caught? Was it intercepted? And then from there, it's kind of just following this pattern. So you can quickly go through the data and it quickly gets input into the database.
But it's like the stats person for that team that's entering it.
So
okay.
That stats person doesn't have to be necessarily a stats person themselves. At the high school level, we understand there's issues with resources available. So it could always be just a dedicated parent or just anyone that's available for the game just to use the application.
Okay. So you're not crowdsourcing a bunch of different stats for any, okay.
No.
I am understanding now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can you help? Well, first, before I ask my question, I really enjoyed your presentation. I thought you presented very well. Can you help me understand the difference between the consumer side of it and the business to business? So why would an individual need access to this app?
Right. So on the consumer side, this is more for coaches and amateur teams, right, who are looking to implement analytics into their decision making. Right. Currently, they don't have the data or the tools to do anything other than go based off of their gut. Right. So a more experienced coach clearly would have an advantage there. Right. But professional sports teams are starting to use analytics into their decision making to paint a better picture of the game. So on the consumer side, it would be a coach, right, that's looking to make better decisions for their team. On the business side, we'd take that data that they're recording for their team, and then we have a holistic picture of what that team did throughout the season and what each individual player did. And that's valuable information for people who are looking to recruit those players to come play in college or at the next level.
So what about players? Have you considered them wanting to purchase the app or a membership, or is it just coaches and
teams? So their information would be in the application that's being recorded, right? So they're every play-by-play, every event that's recorded throughout the game, right? That's impacting the player, right? That's the information that the business application will be taking from.
So does this record every play versus the individual opponent recording their weight and their size so that as a recruiter, you can tell, well, this guy is, he's been great at tackles, but he's only gone up against these very small competitors, et cetera.
Yeah. So this kind of goes through, like, you'll be able to put in, right, who your opponent is, right, and you'll have a holistic picture of the game. That's not information that we think is necessarily to input into the app necessarily, as we think that's something that if this could catch the attention of a recruiter, right? And then you could go in and then it's easy to get that information directly from a player. That's something that's not easy. That's not easy to fabricate, I guess I would say, right?
This, I get the data collection part of it, but it seems like the real value is in the gleaning information from the data. Where does your company fit in with that information? Because if all it is data collection, it's just numbers to a coach. Where does the actual value come in with the, okay, here's what you should do next, if this, then that?
Right. So on the business model, we actually reference that exactly. And we said that we're going to, for the time being, we're going to have a template available for Excel or Tableau or Power BI. And it's going to be the Athlogic template. So if a coach has no experience, you just input it into the template and it'll automate it. So you just get the dashboard available immediately, and it'll give you insights. Eventually, we're going to have a proprietary software, or proprietarily built into our application. So you can open up the application on the consumer or business side and see from there like any statistics you may want to or find value from. Does that answer your question?
I think so, with the exception of, would it ever be able to be done in real time? Like you mentioned,
Right.
you know, to the point where, okay, it's now 3rd and 3 against this type of with this much time left on the clock, here's exactly what we should do within 10 seconds, do it now.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what we were planning for originally. So for the time being, we're exporting it as a CSV, and we're just sending that over to the consumer side and the business side as well. But once we're actually able to build out those platforms, we absolutely want to have them built into the applications.
Are you focused on football only?
So for the time being, we are. However, as we establish ourselves in football, we'll eventually be able to shift our focus and enter new markets such as other sports. So yeah, we have a future plans for that.
How much background does anyone have in artificial intelligence?
I've previously worked with IBM, so I worked on an AI team there, and our lead developer Raghav he's actually going to be working as an AI developer with Intel this summer, so he has a decent amount of experience already with Danfoss. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sun-Grown Bakery. We are a dessert bakery that seeks to reduce Earth's carbon footprint and human anxiety all at the same time. My name is Courtney Fiala, and my favorite dessert is our classic with a twist.
And my name is Hunter Van Skyok, and my favorite dessert is our Snickerdoodle-Doo cookie.
Everybody loves desserts. Almost 40% of consumers eat it twice a week. We pride ourselves on being able to satisfy these cravings, all while reducing the Earth's carbon footprint, because we are plant-based. So we do not contribute to the methane emissions produced by dairy cows, which, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide emissions. Furthermore, a farm that has 2,500 dairy cows produces the same amount of waste as a city with 411,000 residents. So by consuming our goods, you are making an eco-conscious decision. Here at Sun-Grown Bakery, it is also our goal to reduce human anxiety. According to ADAA, 40 million adults are diagnosed with anxiety disorder every year in America. It is our goal to reduce this number by having a line of desserts infused with cannabidiol, also known as CBD. CBD works with the body's endocannabinoid system to alleviate a number of different ailments, specifically anxiety. One study found that those suffering from social anxiety disorder displayed significantly less anxiety and discomfort while public speaking after having consumed CBD. Our sunflowers love this ingredient as they get to eat a sweet treat while improving their mental health. The plant-based food industry is growing. According to NPD Group, a market research company, 95% of those ordering plant-based options do not even follow a plant-based diet. Currently, this industry is worth $4.5 billion, and Grand View Research anticipates it to grow to $43.2 billion by the year 2025. And we are on the cutting edge of this explosive market. When we look at our line of desserts infused with CBD, we also see huge potential. According to BDS Analytics, the collective market sales for CBD is anticipated to exceed $20 billion by the year 2024. And when we get more specific about the hemp-based food market, we also see exponential growth. This is anticipated to grow to $1.83 billion by the year 2023. And while that's awesome opportunities for our future, we already know we have a very strong customer base and that it is ever climbing. All of these followers are organic, meaning we did not have any paid advertising. So these followers sought us out and not vice versa. And what kind of bakery would we be if we didn't showcase some of our desserts? Here is our Donut Kill My Sugar Vibe, a cookie dough stuffed donut hole. Our Snickerdoodle-Doo, a cinnamon sugary cookie. are strawberry treats forever. It's a vanilla cupcake stuffed with strawberry buttercream and topped with fresh strawberries. Ooh, baby, give me some more. A graham cracker cookie cup with chocolate ganache insides and roasted marshmallows on top. And for our fall seasonal menu, we have our pumpkin spice and everything nice muffin. And we love to get into themes and festive holidays. And so for Halloween, we created Dracula's Midnight Snack. And in front of you, you guys have my favorite, our classic with a twist. It's a chocolate chip cookie with a twist. There's pretzels inside. There's also 20 milligrams of CBD. There's also espresso for you. It's a chocolate cupcake with espresso buttercream and topped with Oreo crumbles. That cupcake does not have any CBD inside.
Currently, we are selling out of Natural Life CBD located off of Pensacola Street here in Tallahassee. We have had great success there, and each week are forced to increase our inventory to meet our growing demand for our products on their shelves. Beyond that, we travel around the state of Florida and pop up at various vegan festivals, as well as arts events. There are over 10 CBD selling shops here in Tallahassee. We are able to build mutually beneficial relationships with these companies as seen by Natural Life. The only other food products carried in these stores are CBD-infused gummies and chocolate, which are not plant-based like our desserts. There's also a little bit of competition in the plant-based foods market with a few vegan restaurants in Tallahassee, as well as big retailers like Whole Foods. But none of those desserts are infused with CBD like ours. These are actual numbers from three festivals we've attended since November. As you can see, our profit margin has steadily increased with each event we have attended. One reason for this is we have begun to buy some of our ingredients in bulk, which has decreased the cost of our goods while increasing our volume. These events have been essential for continuing to grow our customer base to direct business to our products or towards our products on Natural Life store shelves, as well as towards our website to choose Sun-Grown Bakery for catering. Working with Natural Life has been incredible so far, as we have been able to decrease the cost of our most expensive ingredient, which is CBD. Beyond that, we will continue to travel the state of Florida and pop up at various festivals and events with the intent to spread brand awareness in hopes of one day owning our very own Sun-Grown Bakery location. Upon receiving funding from the InNOLEvation Challenge, we will be able to address the #1 problem that we are facing as a business, which is growing our business in a way that scales it to maximize profit. One thing that we need is more equipment to maximize our efficiency when we're baking in our commercial kitchen. Beyond that, we would like to begin shipping across the state of Florida, but need to invest in packaging that will keep our goods fresh while in transit. We also would like to begin to buy promotional materials like banners, more stickers, as well as a line of Sun-Grown Bakery merchandise, which would eventually serve as an additional revenue stream for us. We also would like to buy CBD in bulk, which would reduce the cost of our most expensive ingredient by an additional 83% on top of our already discounted price. Essentially, this funding would enable us to better meet the growing demand for Sun-Grown Bakery goods.
Sun-Grown Bakery was founded with the people in mind. It's a place where taste, compassion, and comfort meet. We thank you guys for your time and we'll accept questions now.
Could you explain your customer segments again, please?
So our customer segments would be those interested in CBD or those who already consume CBD, because we have our main products contain CBD, as well as those who are eating a plant-based diet, and then 95% who buy plant-based foods but do not follow a plant-based diet.
Do you see this as a B2C or a B2B play right now? Are you looking like who is your customers, cafes and supermarkets, or are you direct to consumer?
So we're kind of both at the moment. We're direct to consumer when we go to festivals, but we're to business when we're selling out of Natural Life, because we sell it to them on consignment and then they sell it to their customers.
I have more questions, but somebody else can go.
I had a question. I saw the costs or where you're going to spend your money, but I haven't seen what your labor costs are per unit, your packaging costs are per unit.
Yeah, so our packaging costs, usually the entire good is around $1 to make if it has CBD in it, or lower than 40 cents for every good if it does not have CBD in it. We include any packaging in that. Our packaging is very inexpensive because we buy it in bulk through an online restaurant retailer. As far as labor goes, we're currently not paying ourselves. but eventually we'll need to calculate those costs into our operation. A part of what we would use the funding for would be purchasing more equipment to package our goods to decrease our labor time and costs there. And then we can focus more on promotional materials and baking with our time instead.
When you add your labor costs, do you think that would change the focus of the business?
Can you elaborate on that slightly in terms of like?
Well, when you decide what you're going to pay yourselves, it may make the cost too high as to what market you're going to focus in on.
One way we're going to combat that is by purchasing our CBD in bulk. So the cost of one cookie, for example, will be down to around 40 cents per unit with CBD infused in it. And that one unit would go for $7 retail value. So that is a pretty significant profit margin on each unit. And as we continue to do more and more volume by selling out of more and more retail locations, as well as larger festivals, we should be able to pay ourselves a living salary to start out.
Did you say you're going to charge $7 for a cookie?
Yes, ma'am, because it is 20 milligrams of CBD in it, and it's a pretty good size, and frankly, that's what the market will bear. We have tested this at multiple different festivals and events with different target audiences, whether that's a vegan festival or art festivals here in Tallahassee and Jacksonville, or even at Market Wednesday on FSU's campus.
What's the COGS on that?
I'm sorry? Oh, yes. So
On a cookie?
Yes, so it's only like right now, around $1 of CBD is infused in it. If there's no CBD infused in it, it's less than 50 cents per unit.
So $1.50, okay.
And what's the sales cost for the non-infused cookie?
For a non-infused cookie, it would usually be about $5.
Well, let me say they were delicious. Really,
Thank you very much.
really
We appreciate
delicious.
that.
And I have some experience with some vegan people, so I've had to try some things. So I'm really very impressed with the products that I tasted here. Absolutely delicious.
Thank you so much.
One question I have, because I don't know the legalities, could a Whole Foods sell this in their store?
Yes.
And have you approached Whole Foods?
We haven't approached Whole Foods yet, just because we're not at the level to scale that far, because with Natural Life, we're trying to keep up with that demand, and it's proving to be a challenge because they keep selling out and we keep having to bake more every week. So come summer, we're going to approach Whole Foods to try and get into their stores. If you're curious about whether they can be selling hemp-based foods, they can, because it's currently 100% legal within the state of Florida, because we follow all hemp food law regulations.
So how are you guys going to address distribution and scalability?
So to address distribution and scalability, well, come summer, we're trying to go to Natural Life's second store on Thomasville Road, because they've already asked us to do it currently, but we told them we can't handle it at the current moment because it's just us two, and we haven't been able to purchase our CBD in bulk yet, and we haven't been able to get more labor to help with packaging and things of that nature. So the next goal is to get into Natural Life's second store, and then we would try to go into Whole Foods. And then as for distribution, right now we're just going to focus on Tallahassee. But as Hunter mentioned before, we want to invest in shipping. So we want to invest in packaging that would keep our goods fresh. So we don't want to send a cookie that is stale as soon as it arrives. We want to make sure it's just as delicious as the ones you guys tasted today.
And what kind of preservatives, if any, are there in here? And if not, what is the shelf life?
Currently, we do not have any preservatives in our goods. We take pride in them being fresh baked and feel as though best quality is achieved when they're freshly baked and are consumed within about 1 week. So our optimal shelf life is 1 week. Technically, you could eat it up to 2 weeks just because there's no dairy or anything that will spoil in it, but the good will probably be a little bit more stale and not quite as ideally fresh as we would prefer it to be.
The $4,000 for rent for a commercial kitchen, is that a month, a year?
That is for 10 months, because we anticipated doing 20 hours a month, and it's $10 an hour. Yes, $10 an hour.
What kind of scale are you doing right now? You said you sell out every week. Can you give us an idea of like what that looks like?
Yeah, so for this last drop off, we created 18 ooh babies, so the ones on the bottom left. And then we also did 6 classic with a twist that you guys consumed and 6 gluten-free classic with a twist, because we also have a gluten-free option for those who cannot consume gluten. And so far, they're, I think, 3/4 of the way sold out. And before that, we had slightly less. We had 12 ooh babies and 12 classics with a gluten-free twist, and they sold out within 4 days.
So are you currently pretty much making them on demand, or just as when you need them? You don't have like an inventory stocked up, right? Because it's
We do not have an inventory stocked up. We bake every Tuesday night and we drop up every Wednesday morning because, as Hunter said, we like to keep them as fresh as possible. And so we don't have any just waiting in my fridge ready to be dropped off, because then the cookies kind of get a little hard and we don't want to sell something that we wouldn't enjoy eating ourselves.
What's your, you said you're on consignment. What's your percentage you're getting right now?
Currently, we're getting 65%.
Are you throwing anything out?
For the first week, we threw out a little bit just because we over anticipated what it was going to be like, but then we moved our display case towards the register and it really popped off there. It's all location, location, location. And so from that point on, we have not had to throw anything away. No eating of costs and literally eating our goods.
Have you looked into co-packers at all who can help produce it? Okay.
So one of our goals is to have an intern come fall 2020 so that they can help us with packaging and baking and anything that they want to know if they want to start their own bakery or their own business. And we just get a kind of a free set of hands while giving them experience.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just one thing that I noticed on the cookie with classic with a twist, and CBD is something that is new to me, but is it okay for kids? I'm sure it is, but is it okay? And second, it's not listed on the ingredient.
If you take it out of the label, it's on the back of it.
Okay.
And there's a hemp food label specifically where there's a QR code that if you scan it, it links to our wheat leaf, the CBD oil that we use. It links to their third-party testing results of them saying what cannabinoids are in it, what pesticides are in it, and whatnot. It's okay for kids to consume it. Currently, there's one legal drug that has CBD in it called Epidiolex that's used for children with seizures. It is basically a company policy on who you want to sell it to, but we sell it to those 18 and over.
So number one, beautiful display.
Thank you.
I love it. I love that you made it and you allowed us to experience and taste your product. Absolutely wonderful. I'm going to push you a little bit on your environmental play, which I agree. Absolutely, vegan-based diet and all that is great. But currently, you have you're bringing in single-use plastic. Have you thought about that? Is there another way to deliver this in a way that isn't using petroleum-based products?
Most definitely. We've looked into biodegradable packaging, but it's much more expensive than the packaging that we use now. And currently with our budget, we just could not afford it. We couldn't be selling as many goods as we are because we wouldn't be able to afford to buy all the ingredients to bake everything, nor could we afford the festival rent. So upon receiving funding, we would definitely look into biodegradable packaging just because we want to truly stand by our mission statement to help reduce the Earth's carbon footprint, like one dessert at a time. And so it's unfortunate that we have to use single-use plastic at the current moment, but most definitely we want to go into biodegradable packaging. And all of our for our display, it's all secondhand bought from like thrift shops and everything. So we didn't want to contribute to any more like fast fashion, quote unquote, in the sense in that way.
Great presentation.
Okay, so our next team is Virtual Lens.
Good morning. My name is Weston Dudley, and today I'm joined with Cal Suarez. As engineers, we understand the difficulties and challenges of learning new softwares, new programs, and new technologies that develop us for the engineering industry. It takes us weeks, months, and sometimes even years to understand the concept it takes for us to become successful. As a team, as Virtual Lens, we are determined to change this. because not only do we see this in the engineering industry, we especially see this in film production. By being able to collaborate with the Florida State College of Motion Picture Arts, we're able to identify a place for innovation. Today, we're going to show you how Virtual Lens is creating a product that will revolutionize the way that we teach film and film education. Storytelling in filmmaking is much more than just splicing some scenes together. It's about evoking emotion inside of the viewer. To do that, students have to learn a multitude of different concepts to do this. To teach them how to control that emotion in a film takes time. Let's take example, a character. In terms of framing, there's 7 different ways we can frame this single character. Each one of these frames tells a different story. Each one of these frames evokes a different emotion. To tell a student when to use which frame and why takes time. This is costly and this is demanding. Not to mention, this is only one aspect of a multitude of concepts for them to become an effective filmmaker.
The film industry is massive, with over 600 schools worldwide teaching the best practices for filmmaking. A lot of these institutions struggle with expensive and inefficient equipment in their classrooms. Something like camera placement, it can take 4 hours of class time just to set up and 6 to 8 months for students to fully comprehend. And while they're doing this, every time they want to teach a lesson, they have to recreate the set they're making to mimic a real film. All of this can be very demanding. It requires a whole team to operate one camera, as well as teams dedicated to that set creation, as well as teams dedicated to location scouting. Here we have a video demonstrating a typical class setting. Here you see a student using a camera, weighs about 40 to 50 pounds, and she's keeping it in steady cam using this mount. Alongside her, 4 other students using other complicated equipment such as this, just to make the camera fully functional. Our solution integrates 3 pieces. We have the interface of an iPad Pro, technology from Unreal Engine, as well as a tactile controller we've developed. Here we have some testing with the iPad as well as Unreal. We're able to use the iPad similar to a camera to move around a virtual space. Our interface includes a lot of the camera functions a typical camera does, such as being able to change your focus or lens or move around the virtual space using joysticks. Right now, when a professor teaches a class, they need to use their camera, but they also have other excessive equipment, such as interchangeable lenses, dollies, or mounts, and the use of all this equipment creates that lag of 6 to 8 months time teaching. Our device includes all the functionality that this equipment does in one convenient package that you can use in about 2 weeks to teach these concepts. This device will take 15 minutes of class time to set up instead of that 4 hours, and it allows students to focus more on the task at hand. It cuts the cost for physical assets because everything lives in that virtual space you're working with, so you don't have to worry about creating that set every single time. It only weighs 8 pounds, so students can focus on the task at hand rather than the strain of the device, and it includes all essential camera functions for good filmmaking techniques.
So now we understand more about our product, we want to talk about who is our competition. The Inside VCS is a virtual camera controller that is made by OptiTrack. The difference in our products is that this controller is made for the professional. It ignores basic key features that students need to understand concepts in filming. The OptiTrack solution is $5,000, while Virtual Lens provides you a much affordable option at $1,500. Our product is centered around the student and the teacher, making ours optimal for the classroom setting. Looking at our markets, by utilizing the university leaders in film and also looking at conferences, it gives us the ability to directly impact national film schools here in the United States. Here, there's 150. But expanding past that, we'd like to impact globally. There's 600 film schools across the world where we could see our products. But our product goes past that. It can be used in any institution that allows to have, that allows to be put in any kind of place where it teaches art or it teaches film. We could do this into high schools or any kind of 2-year colleges that could use this product. So we looked at 15,000 different locations where we could put our product at. It's selling at $1,500 per device. And you put 15 devices per location, because that's the average size of a virtual lab. This would put an average order of $2,200. This is still, or $22,000. This is still $5,000 less than the price of one Red camera. This puts Virtual Lens at a potential market of $337 million.
Now I'm going to go over our company's timeline. Virtual Lens started last September when our team formed and this concept was selected. That following fall, we began our development and prototyping phases. By this April, we'll have our first fully functioning prototype ready for testing. Over the summer, we're partnering with FSU's film school so we can test with their faculty, which will give us the opportunity to get simultaneous feedback as we continue development. Also over the summer is the UFVA Film Conference. This is a huge film conference with over 500 filmmakers in attendance, and this year, it'll be hosted by FSU. This will give us great opportunities for market exposure to our direct market. Next fall will be our final testing stage, where we want to have around a classroom-sized testing of about 15 units in one lab, so we can perfect the design. That way, by next spring, we can start producing for public sale.
By collaborating with Florida State University, it has given us a unique opportunity to put our product in the hands of industry experts. When we showed our product to Jason Maurer, who is an animation professor at Florida State and Emmy winner, this is what he said. This controller you are building will allow us to give our filmmakers instant and effortless control over camera systems. Tom Makoto, who is the CEO of TTI Lumberjack, an experienced industry expert working on films such as Avatar, said, "What's really unique about what's happening with this controller is that it's focused entirely on cinematography education. There's really nothing like that out there." Our team is a team of 5 engineers that come from a diverse technical background, from software development to R&D to starting your own companies. By collaborating with Florida State University, the College of Motion Picture Arts, and Tom Makoto, it gives us the opportunity to reach potential markets and have industry feedback. With virtual lenses, make sure that our solutions are long-term. Our mission is to create a user-friendly virtual camera controller that paves the way to more efficient teaching in film. Thank you. And as you guys ask your questions, we're gonna show you one of our prototypes. This is an ergonomical prototype for understanding feedback in terms of locations of buttons and different layouts.
Hey, Weston, I didn't hear any talk about a patent.
So as of now, we could actually apply for a provisional patent that gives us a year to continuously develop until we actually file a actual patent with the USPA, our patent office. Yes. Yes.
Sort of a comment. I love when businesses find a small niche market and just dominate it. So I think you've got a an interesting problem that you've identified and an interesting solution.
Thank you.
So I'm a little bit confused. Does this replace all that big equipment, or is it purely a teaching tool so they know how to use that big equipment?
It's a teaching tool. So we're not getting rid of the typical film equipment that they're using for actual filming. But when it comes to teaching, instead of having to mimic everything about a real film, you can do this in a much more efficient process while still learning those core concepts.
Okay, cool. Very, very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I have a follow-up to that. Along those same lines, I was a little bit uncertain as to the kind of the applicability of it. But so what you're saying is it would teach a student, or it would allow a professor at any collegiate or professional level to teach someone, I guess, how to approach a scene, and then from there they would later be able to use the actual larger equipment they would actually know what they were wanting to do as opposed to trial and error. Is that kind of what you're?
Correct. So when we talked about camera placement, how there's those 7 different options, it's teaching them about which one makes the most sense in a typical setting. And then when they go into the real world using the camera, they would know already what they would want to do.
So would you envision this being used in lower level classes, and then maybe a capstone, they would still use the big, I keep calling it the big equipment. I don't know what it's called, but the big equipment versus the small equipment.
Right.
So, yeah.
Typically for this, it's for the class. So their typical generic classes, they'd be using this, but then when they're doing their like capstone project, like their full-time project, where they're having like their cast and everything, they would take that step to use like the real equipment to take that. But for like the theoretical portions, they'd be using this equipment because it's much more efficient.
Also, when using this, typically a student can only do 1 or 2 films in their entire career. So whenever you make this more efficient, it gives them the opportunity to do 3 or 4 or even more than that.
How did you figure out that this was an issue?
We were actually approached by the FSU Film School. They came to the engineering school with this idea, and they kind of came up with the idea to create this team around the initiative. Tom Makoto, one of the people we talked about, he was one of the big collaborators on this project and creating this idea.
So what specifically will the students learn from using this equipment, like that they couldn't learn from using an iPad and an app to record with?
Okay, so this giving the ergonomic tactile controller mimics what they're used to right now in film. So it's trying to create something that satisfies their wants and their needs versus trying to force them to acclimate to something different. So that's why instead of just having the iPad app, we're trying to create something that feels comfortable, feels familiar.
Did you guys talk about pricing and where you are in pricing and how you arrived at that and margins and things like that?
Yep. So as of now, the price is $1,500 per device. It was actually marked up 50% to account for the marketing and other things of that nature. Right now, doing the actual prototyping, we're taking account of how much each modules, for instance, we're testing out different Bluetooth modules to figure out which one is most efficient for our application. So the prices are still changing, and we're actually implementing basically different strategies. Another one for pricing, since this is more of an enterprise B2B product, one thing we do want to do is actually have an initial price, and over time continuously raise that price until 20% of our leads actually say no to our product. That lets us know that we actually have a good pricing point.
And then what's the shelf life of one of these things? I'm assuming that a school would buy more than one. So how often do they have to be replaced? And is there any opportunity for you guys to charge some kind of subscription for any kind of software in the background so that you have a recurring revenue stream?
Yep. So as far as the pricing, we are putting as Kyle mentioned, we're going through the process of figuring out different packaging. So for instance, if we're going, if we're sending 15 to actual school, then we can have it to where it's like a subscription is included. We can have it to where different, as I said, we're going to do different things, but different packages could be included into the actual price of the device.
Are you aware of any other competitive products out there for simulating the usage and learning of the big cameras?
So in terms of learning, this is primarily the biggest thing on the market. We do have other options. We talked about the Insight BCS that have this virtual camera controllers, but not for teaching. This is the primary one that's used for teaching. That's why it's so unique.
So I'm still struggling with the difference between using an iPad and your device, because for instance, my stepson, he has these little action figures called stick bots, and every time you buy one of those, you can scan a code on the back of the box that lets you download an app, and you could use your iPad to frame and take videos. And I'm just struggling with the difference between something like that and your product.
So something with this, we're taking a lot of feedback with the student and with the professors. A lot of those things are kind of limiting, so they can only do so much. For ours, we're trying to take into professors and say, what aspects of teaching do you do? So whenever we make these controllers, we're targeting a certain thing. And so whenever we also give it to a school, we can give them a teaching lesson. Whenever we give to a student, so further down the road, getting into an app is potentially where we are. Because again, this is working with Unreal Engine. And so this is way more, or this allows way more access to learning than something as small as just taking your phone.
It also is helping them learn like focal length. And so in the Unreal Engine and with our tactile controller, you'll be able to change the focal length of the camera. You'll be able to go in and like, okay, I want to put a camera point here, a camera point here. You can jump shots around it. So versus just, it's not just filming with the iPad. You're learning the basic camera functions using Unreal Engine and the tactile controller, and the iPad is just based as the screen.
So is this actually a separate, I mean, I see the hardware that you have here, but you actually developed a program for this as well?
Correct. In Unreal Engine, they have various plugins, and we've been working on a plugin to create the user interface that wears. So what you saw earlier, that was like an earlier prototype, but we're trying to simplify that, trying to create something that professors would like to see with their screen. So it's both software and hardware development.
So is there a SaaS model associated with this? Is a subscription service, software as a service? Or is it just buy it and then updates are free forever?
So that's one thing we're actually testing out. There's different, like I said, there's different pricing models we go about. We could do the SaaS model, or we just haven't, tested it out yet. So there's a potential for that, but we just haven't gone through that process.
Is the 1500, is that just for this base and then the iPad is something separate, or is it? Yeah, okay.
So it's the actual device and the software.
What does this person on the end do?
So I work mostly on the software side of this. So creating the user interface and then updating the camera functions. So that's why I was like trying to talk a little bit more about like what our software actually does in terms of camera functions. I mentioned like the changing of the lenses. That's a key concept that all filmmakers have to learn. And with this, you can, you know, really streamline that process and focus on the concept rather than, you know, trying to get used to the equipment along with trying to learn this. So that's our project.
Another point too that we didn't really bring up, but animators right now, when they take these classes, they have to use the physical cameras as well, even though they don't for their actual films. So for this, it's kind of cutting that barrier for them, because what's the point for them to learn about a physical camera when they don't do that in their actual career? So that's another potential for this product.
Is this just a class project for you, or is this something you actually want to bring to market?
Yeah, this is absolutely something that we want to bring to market. This is something that we see with the confidence we've gotten from our product validation. We are seeing the effects what this can do. When we put this in the hands of professors and see their eyes light up, absolutely, this is something that we're very serious about.
You put it in my hands, my eyes would gloss over, but.
I wanted to say I enjoyed your presentation. Throughout the presentation, I was thinking, I want to ask them, have they talked to professors at FSU and what have they said? And you had a slide on that, and I thought that was very valuable.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Jacob Gottlieb. I'm the CEO of Aura Biotechnologies, and we're using nature to treat nature. So I'd like to begin by telling you a little story about my friend Bob. He has an important job here in Florida. He's a citrus grower. He supplies citrus for Florida orange juice. But Bob's faced some hardship over the past few years. Hardship shown here, titled citrus greening, is a bacterial infection which causes a blockage in the vascular system and leads to underdeveloped fruit and dead trees. Production is dropped and trees are dying. This is how the problem spreads through a farm and a state, through an invasive moth called the Asian citrus psyllid. It picks up the greening bacteria while feeding, stores it in its gut, then transfers it to a healthy tree, infecting it with the bacteria. Production of oranges in Florida has dropped to 1/3 of what it was before the disease, and over $4.5 billion in revenue have been lost and 3,400 jobs. But this problem spreads much farther than Florida, affecting Mexico, China, California, Brazil, and many other countries. Farmers have tried to remedy this solution by using an antibiotic. They've tried an invasive species of wasp to prey on the psyllid, and now they're just trying to keep the trees healthy enough to produce fruit, and this is done by upping the use of fertilizer and nutrient spray 12 times more than they did before. And so this is where we come in, Aura Biotechnologies, using a natural therapeutic to treat a natural disease. So let me walk you through the Aura solution. We know that 80% of Florida trees are infected by citrus greening. We can identify and engineer natural therapeutics called antimicrobial peptides, and then combine them in the lab for added efficacy, then administer them through our own FluorX injector catheter, which you were given before. So we use antimicrobial peptides, but what is a peptide? So there are natural building blocks called amino acids, which make up proteins. A protein you may know of is casein. It's the protein in milk, which makes milk white. Peptides are a smaller version of that, like a pre-protein. And so we found peptides with really unique features, and these are called antimicrobial peptides. So these peptides behave like antibiotics, so they inhibit bacteria. They're from plant and animal genome, and we can actually engineer and edit these peptides to make them patentable, and they can actually treat human disease like cancer. So this is why they're great for agriculture. There's thousands of AMPs in nature, so we really mitigate the risk of antibiotic resistance. They are biodegradable and they're natural, and the AMPs will not end up in the food. And farmers love marketing natural therapeutics. So we talked about the peptides, now let's go over the injection catheter system. So when we first spoke to farmers, they said, even if we had a perfect solution, we wouldn't be able to administer them. So that's why we came up with the FluorX injection catheter. So you're actually able to screw the catheter in once and then find the vein or the phloem and then easily apply more. And so there's no more wasted product in syringes or peptides or any therapeutics you enter. Here's why we think it'll work. So we ran a test last year, and on the x-axis, you can see 3 different bacterial strains closely related to the greening bacteria. On the y-axis is cell concentration, or just number of cells. And the blue line would tell us how cells grew when there's no AMP added. And the orange line is how cells grew when we did add the AMP cocktail. And you can actually notice a 90% reduction in cell growth. So a study by UF showed that oxytetracycline, an antibiotic, showed promise in mitigating symptoms of citrus greening when trunk injected, which is what we're doing with the FluorX catheter. So let me walk you through the revenue stream. There's about 2.5 million acres of citrus in the world. About 500,000 acres of that are in Florida, and we think we can hit that about half of that, so 250,000 acres. We think we can hit it because it's owned by just 8 different groves. And if those groves operate like Bob's farm, who spends $3 million per year treating citrus greening for his 10,000 acres, multiplying that by 25 times gives us 75 million per year. So here's the cost structure for that 250,000 acres. The injection catheters run us about 27 million, peptides 25 million, labor 7.5 million, and anything else 4 million, which totals up to 64 million, or a profit margin of 11 million or 15%. So any money won from innovation will go towards a provisional patent for any peptides and the FluorX catheter, which will run us about 4,000, to be able to supply peptides for any experiments, another 4,000, and then run our own injection tests, about 1,500, and anything left over, $500, totaling to $10,000. And so this is the team that can get it done. Myself, Jacob Gottlieb, the CEO of Aura Biotech. I'm a bio major in my 3rd year. And Juan Portilla, the CTO, a bio major who's graduated now. Shams Danani, VP of Hardware, mechanical engineer, and Jamal Yumas, a member of the board and a social entrepreneur. And so we're Aura Biotechnologies, using nature to treat nature. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you for listening, and I'll take any questions now.
Yeah. Okay. Jacob, that was a really good presentation.
Thank you so much.
The 64 million in costs got my attention.
Okay.
Do you have an intermediate approach before you ramp up for those kind of costs?
There are different ways to implement it. So we kind of scaled it because we had a family friend who owns that big farm, which is Bob's farm. But we can really treat like anyone's backyard trees, for example. And we could, give them the injection catheter and a little supply of peptides, and that would be like a smaller quantity. And so a little more expensive, per quantity, but not scaled up.
So first I want to say fantastic growth in this presentation.
Thank you.
Just how you're explaining it now. I'd like to think the pain of you trying to explain it to me before, like you've crystallized it, dumbed it down for even I can understand it. So
you want to plug the podcast, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great podcast. My one question is, and this is kind of a little bit just because I'm wondering, when I spoke with you last time, you hadn't actually been able to administer this on an actual tree. Have you, and it's all been lab tests. Have you actually been able to use it on a tree yet?
No, that's why we highlighted the evidence as just in the wells. If I didn't clarify that, those the graph we showed earlier was just in the lab in some test wells. But you have showed us that antibiotics could work when we injected it. So we think since the AMPs were able to kill in the lab, then when we inject it, they could probably kill too. But we have not. That's really what we use the money for, is to test it in trees.
Okay.
So I'm confused about what the product is. Is the product the injector or the peptide or both, or do you see two different markets? Can this thing be used to inject other things, or is it
Absolutely.
specifically designed just for your peptide?
Yeah, it's absolutely designed for anything you want. That's why we think it can really scale across the agricultural market. But we really saw the problem, and we've kind of developed this like over the past year for a different project. But we think it can be used for any different things.
And then what's the difference between this little injector and the other ones that my husband happens to be a forester? So what's the difference between this injector and the other ones that they used on, let's say, they had a problem with palm trees at one point and they put little things on the bottoms of the palm trees?
So that one is specifically designed to hit the phloem, or like the vein of the tree, which brings nutrients up into the top of the tree. So that one's specifically designed to like screw into here and then be able to just stick in any syringe and then put in AMPs or any different product you want. Does that make sense? Okay.
So what would you seek the patent on?
On really both. That one is, we can immediately get a patent on, and then like the peptide, editing the peptides is like kind of still a work in progress, but in the future we could get a patent on those.
You have a provisional patent on this though, don't you?
That's what we're working on.
Oh, that's what you're working on. Okay.
And the reference to the injections that UF has discussed, how are they injecting their trees? Do they have a device similar to this, or do you know what they're doing?
I think they didn't explain that well in the paper, but from when we just spoke to typical farmers, they said they were struggling with it, and then we kind of developed it, and then like that was that paper came from like late 2019, and so we developed this like over the past year, and so they're probably just going in blindly and hoping to reach the phloem and just maybe getting some results, but with our product, it's a much better solution, much more consistent.
Right, let's say that it works and you're able to, solve this problem. How does the tree have to be treated every year? Is it something where there's an ongoing revenue stream, or once you solve the problem, it doesn't exist anymore?
My guess, since we haven't run it in the trees, it'll probably mitigate the bacteria. So it's basically a colony of bacteria. And then if we run our AMPs, we'll probably shrink it down a lot, but maybe not totally kill it. And so it'll probably rise back up maybe in 3 months or maybe a year. That's still what we're determining, but it really should be ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And the farmers, what they're now doing is using fertilizer, and that's not solving the problem, it's just keeping the trees healthy. And so we're just kind of providing that avenue and just consistent revenue stream like the fertilizer would be doing.
Have you looked into whether there are any grants available for this type of thing from the Florida citrus growers or anything?
I've looked briefly, but it hasn't been my top priority, but it will be.
Do you have any concerns about negative impacts to the tree since you haven't tested this on an actual tree?
So there's actually been studies on like GMO trees who have been like genetically engineered to novelly produce these peptides. And so they showed no damage, and they've actually showed like really good signs of treating the bacteria. The only problem is it's a GMO tree, and one, consumers don't like GMOs, and two, Bob's farm and like plenty of other farms have thousands of trees already planted. They can't uproot them and put in GMO trees. So we're kind of taking that approach and putting it in immediately.
So I guess another way to say my question is, what are the risks with using this on a tree?
Is it, are you just talking about the peptides or both of them?
Everything.
Okay. Well, so the study I talked about like just now showed us that the peptides don't really cause any damage to the tree. And then the injection system, I guess it could, but we assume that it'd be small enough and it won't cause much lasting damage. We assume that it'll just grow around the tree, and then, or the tree will grow around it, and it'll be a non-issue.
What is the cost to test this out to be able to prove if it works or not? And what is the timeline to follow that?
That's still being mapped out, to be honest with you, but I did my best in calculating the cost for it, and it's still a work in progress.
This is a branding question. Why did you change your name from Floima and not have your really cool logo anymore?
It's just a different project mainly, and Aura is actually the Latin like root for orange, so it's a little bit. There's some like history behind Aura, but I don't know, Mark.
Okay, I just wondering because I absolutely loved your branding before. This is great too, but I just like.
Floema, it's a little less obvious what we are, and I guess with Aura Biotechnology, you're not exactly sure, but
Okay.
Aura Biotech.
Fair enough.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Good job.
Is this the right level for everybody? Good morning. We are Jammer. We'll get into a little bit of that in just a second. I'm joined today by my colleague, Joshua Guerrero. My name is Michael Ward. We're also joined by our fellow teammates, Russell Cooks and Anthony Teamster. They'll be joining us for the Q&A session at the end. So before we can talk about what a modular music station is, we have to kind of talk about what a just music workstation is. And some of these devices on the screen here and names like sampler, looper, mixer, and MPC probably don't mean that much to most of you. But that basically shows that there's a gap in accessibility to these kinds of things. And when we think about a music studio, you kind of think of a big room with more buttons in it than an airline cockpit. So there's a gap there where we need to address. And on top of that, these devices can be expensive, anywhere from hundreds to thousands of dollars, and restrictive. You may have two devices that half the features are the same and the other half are two different things for those two devices, and you need both if you want to do those same things, even though you're basically paying for half of it to be the same as what you just bought. So we went out and surveyed some fellow artists, musicians, producers, and asked them if they had a music workstation of their own, what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, and features they thought that we could potentially add to those. And we got a lot of the same results, that they wanted it to be portable, easy to set up, having shortcuts, being able to connect to the computer. And on top of that, the functionality, having it be able to expand and have more and more of these functionalities without having that increase in price as you go up. So we bring a modular music station to the picture. So basically we're taking those features of each of those devices, splitting up into modular blocks, which can be arranged and attached to each other in any configuration, and work together to form that music workstation that we were talking about, basically for anybody that would want to use one. For this, you basically would only need to buy each individual modular piece to increase your, you'd only have to pay for that one device. And like I said, each of these pieces would just snap together. You'd be able to add on as you would wish. That makes it easier for your setup. So talking a little bit more about design, this would be an example setup. So let's say you have your keyboard, a couple of drum pads for playing drum sounds, get the rhythm in there, and then the main hub, which all of these pieces would be wired to through a USB in the back. Each of these devices has a small microprocessor in it, just basically tells the main hub where their sound is coming from and when, so that a G note plays when you hit the G key, and the cymbal crash happens when you hit the drum pad. To make room for those wires in the back, the device will be up on stilts, and like I said, each of those blocks connect together using magnets on the sides. And each of these you'll have a set size for each of these pieces, small, medium, and large. And you can have any number of configurations using these pieces. And like I said, you'll be able to expand out from any setup you would have just by adding another piece to it.
Good morning, everybody. So who would be interested in this? We got music producers from the beginners to advanced. We got schools. You got people who just want to learn something. Our initial market will be our beginners. Why? Because we are cheaper than our competition. We are able to give individuals a choice on how to set up their system. So that makes it easier for individuals who may not have the money or the time or the resources to go and buy something that can go from hundreds to thousands of dollars, as my partner said. Like we said, this gives our beginners the ability to learn things piece by piece. Like we said, our workstation is modular. So if you want to set up just one part first, learn the ins and the outs of that, you can do that. Once you feel ready, move on to the next set. And you can combine them, move it around, do as you please. This will allow our beginners to become intermediate and then advanced members. All right, so our beginner package would be $200. You would get your main hub, 2 drum pads, keyboard with some knobs on it. Now this allows your beginner user to learn as you go. Like I said, you have your drum pad, learn how to make 808 sounds, learn how to make things of that nature. Keyboard, you want to do some Beethoven, do your little Beethoven. You got that as well. You want to change the sounds, you got your knobs. Your main hub will just let you know what you're playing, what you're doing, and how you're connected if you are connected to a computer. Now, what we also got that's different from our competition is we have different blocks that allow you to connect to our main beginner package. You got your keyboard extension, $50, medium-sized blocks with your drum pads, filters, any type of recording system that we might add as well, $40. Then you got some small blocks that will just control your volume and things of that nature. Brings us to my competition. Now, as you can see, Roland and Yamaha, expensive. Anyone who's just starting off will not be able to touch those systems at all. You got, even though they do allow you, well, Roland allows you to have drum pads and keys on their systems, you're looking at a base price of just $400. That's already double than what we're offering. Yamaha, just piano. And that right there, expensive, $500 to $4,000. I don't know about y'all, I can't afford that. Akai, that's our closest competition. Now, the difference between us and Akai is the fact that Akai will give you a standalone product, and that's it. If you want to buy something bigger, smaller, you have to pay an extra $200 to $400, whereas you can buy our product and spend $50 if you want more keys, $40 if you want more drum pads, and the other system will be cheaper. So right now, we're still working on a prototype phase. We'll soon be adding more features to our system. In May, we're going to have our customer acquisition where we'll outreach, and then production and marketing will happen in June.
Can you articulate for me again clearly what the problem is that you're solving?
Yes, thank you. Basically, in the current market, you are stuck with set sizes of devices that range in complexity, like we saw in upwards to thousands of dollars. We are taking those devices that already exist, splitting them up into pieces so that you only need to buy the pieces that you need or that you would want to expand what you're working on. Basically, it's a price gap, it's a complexity gap, and that's where we're trying to bridge that gap.
I realize one of the benefits that you're trying to, how you're trying to stand out is by being a lower cost alternative. You priced out what it would cost you to make these blocks? I mean,
Right. So the prices that we had on there for the initial package and some of those expansions are based on the price of the equipment that we've already purchased to make the prototype, as well as assuming at scale, some of those pieces would be cheaper if we're buying them in bulk and, taking into account some percentage of profit margin.
What's your next step to get an MVP?
In the MVP, I'm sorry.
Minimal viable product.
So we'll finish the prototype, basically work out all the kinks, figure out exactly what pieces we're going to offer, and in what packages. Sorry.
Yeah, just in the interest of your time, my question is specifically, like from where you are now, what needs to happen in order for you to get a prototype? What do you need to do? Like, do you have the ability within your team to execute this? Do you need to get an engineer? How's it going to happen?
I'm an electrical engineer. I'm joined by two computer engineers as well as an electrical engineer. We are currently working on this prototype as we speak. We should be done like by April. We are confident that the four of us, will be able to make at least a working concept of what this would be.
Hi,
Sorry.
You said you did a survey. Was it informal? How many people did you survey to determine the need for this product?
There is an extra slide on the end of this. I didn't have it viewed, but it is our actual survey. So we made a Google survey. So we'd sent that link out to our friends and friends of those friends, basically people we knew that were in or who were musicians or would have these kinds of devices. I think in total we sampled maybe a dozen or so people. It was a small survey, but like we said, it was just to kind of get a feel for what those people wanted out of the device initially. Mm-hmm.
Can you give me some color on how the end product of someone's mixed production would compare to a studio recording? So if I have an aspiration, I see this either as a game, a hobby, something that's fun to kill some time on and be creative with, or potentially I have an aspiration to produce something that could, go viral and become a hit song maybe on the high end of things. So is your product allowing that to happen, or the alternative would be am I going to need to go into a production studio and rent time there to really produce the finished product, or will your product allow me to have a song that compares with that?
Yeah, so our product will allow you to make that song. You won't have to go to the studio. You basically take our product and you hook it up to your computer with software. You call it DAW, Digital Audio Workstation. You plug it up to there, you can record your music, and it'll be just as an MP3 file, just as if you went to the studio.
So I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, basically to create that same studio setup, you would simply need to expand our device with enough pieces. So you basically end up with the equivalent setup, if that makes sense.
So your company is strictly the hardware. It would connect to an already existing,
yes, sir.
Like you said, DAW.
Mm-hmm.
I have a comment and then a question. Your presentation started very strong. I really appreciated that you acknowledged that we may not really understand a lot of what you're going to be talking about. And I don't really have a background in this at all. So that made me feel great that, okay, they're going to explain it very well for me. But then I started getting a little confused. So I would suggest maybe just thinking about that, how you can explain things a little more, maybe with a video or something, so that I could grasp what you're talking about.
Thank you.
My question is, do any of you have a background in music where you can elaborate a little more on how this would impact you if you were using it?
So yeah, I've been producing for a little bit, for about 2 years now. When I was going out there, when I was first starting producing, I was trying to get things such as drum pads and a keyboard, and they come off really expensive. So, and there are different things, since you have different companies such as Alki and Roland, they may have different softwares that you may have to learn for each one. So yeah, so it was kind of a little bit confusing at first. I learned along the way, but at first it was very difficult for me at first. But as time went on, that's why if I had a product like this, it would be a lot easier to learn for beginners and you won't be paying as much. So
So one of the benefits of your product is that each module works the same way. So you don't have to learn, okay, that is a very important piece that should be highlighted in your presentation. Not that they all work the same way. So you're democratizing music production more than like a garage band. Is that what okay, gotcha. I like that.
What are your revenue projections?
So we haven't really gotten much into the revenue. So we kind of based our costs based on what we have for our budget, based on our senior design project from the engineering school. So that's kind of all the financials that we have so far, because we've been focusing so much on prototyping. And as far as the engineering aspect of it, that we haven't done forward of like, okay, how many sales can we get? How much market can we bring in and things of that nature? And I understand that is kind of a gap between, the engineering and entrepreneurship. But yeah, that is something we'll have to look into in the future.
There's one thing that took me a little bit by surprise was your timeline. The fact that you don't necessarily have a working prototype, but you're going to be in production by June. I just would, I'm not saying don't go for it, but allow yourself a little bit of time, especially for product testing. I didn't see that in there. And that's something that you're really going to need for this type of electronic device. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting idea.
Thank you.
Just piggybacking off Tracy's comment, and I think you touched upon this, but how did you validate that this is a problem?
Go back to the.
So, sorry, I'm going to go back to the actual survey. So we kind of only knew this each from our own experience with the music device industry. And once we surveyed other people that we knew that were also musicians and producers, a lot of people are kind of saying the same thing, that a lot of these devices do limit you because of their cost, because of the kind of redundancies that you can get when you have multiple devices that are basically doing at least half of the same things. And that's where the idea arose.
Really quickly, since we are running out of time, but what are you doing to the actual pieces of equipment that you're buying that makes it so that your customers couldn't just themselves go buy those blocks? What are you doing to them exactly?
I'm sorry, you're saying
what are you doing? What are you putting into the product that you're buying that makes it so that, like, could anyone else do that, do what you're doing, like a customer?
They would have to manufacture their own blocks. So each of our blocks we take apart. We can buy a keyboard. You take apart that keyboard with the keys and the sensors, and it has its own microprocessor. So that when you plug it up to the main hub, the computer knows what type of device you're plugging up to. So the customer could do.
You're actually deconstructing.
Correct, and building our own
boxes. Okay.
Correct, and building our own drum pads. Okay. So they would have to have the experience.
Yeah. Okay, that's a lot of work.
To do that. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all very much for your time this morning. My name is John Bradshaw.
I'm Curtis Rahman.
We are Airwise. We are a team composed of 3 mechanical and 3 computer engineers. The problem we are addressing today is simple. By a show of hands, who here has ever been in your office and been uncomfortable from the AC and has not been able to do anything about it? Exactly. So, a typical HVAC or a typical commercial building has an HVAC system that is zoned. On a zone, you might have 1 room, 3 rooms, a whole hallway, but in this zone, it's all going to be maintained at the same temperature relatively. So if 2 incompatible people are in this same zone, either one or both will be uncomfortable, and there won't be anything that the building maintenance manager or the tenant can do about this. This decreases productivity.
So the average working American spends about 90,000 hours in the office throughout a 30-year career. This translates to about a fifth of your entire adult life in the office. So why should anyone have to settle being uncomfortable somewhere they're going to be spending so much time?
So Typically, to address this issue, it would be an entire building retrofit. These are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that the building maintenance manager would have to get funding for it in order to do. Our target customer is this building maintenance manager, a strictly business-to-business transaction. You're going to find building maintenance managers that say, hey, do you have unhappy tenants that are calling you or coming to you, asking you constantly, I'm uncomfortable, do something about it. And they might not be able to do anything about it. So our solution is very simple. A linearly controlled damp variable air volume diffuser. It raises and lowers to control the volume of air entering in the room. All the way down, more air will come in. All the way up, the air will be choked entering into the room. It controls the damper using a microcomputer.
So this microcomputer takes in 4 inputs and gives out 1 output. 4 inputs are 1, the RFID chip or the user entering the room, 2, the temperature of the room, 3, the push button to signify whether the user is hot or cold, and 4, the time of day that the user presses the button. So the microcomputer is going to take this, once the user presses the button, whether they're hot or cold, it's going to compile that data and put it in a database. From there, we're going to run our algorithm on it. Unfortunately, our lead software engineer, Daryl Brooks, could not be here today. He's in California working on a co-op with Google, but he is perfecting this algorithm to give the optimal preferred temperature to the actuator. This is the 1 output. It gives it to the actuator so that it can raise or lower the damper on the unit to increase airflow or decrease airflow based on if the user is hot or cold.
To give a better example of how this is working, I walk up to my office, 3 stories, flights of stairs, I'm hot. I wanted 100% airflow, get me cold air into this room. As I'm stationary working, I cool down. The diffuser closes up to a minimum airflow, 20%, to maintain that certain set point. These diffusers are standalone. They are strictly tailored for the end user. Your diffuser for your office is your control. You do not get to control the other diffuser in office B or anybody else's. So what is our market? Well, each year, $34 billion are being invested globally in smart cities. Of this market, 5.15 are HVAC controls, and less than 10% share puts us at $400 million a year of a serviceable, obtainable market. Where are we currently in our production? We have constructed our detailed designs and we are currently integrating software and hardware together. Once our software and hardware is integrated together, we are in the test and validation stage. What are we validating? We first have to make sure that our set point or our desired temperature will be reached within a reasonable amount of time. It shouldn't take a day to get to where you want to be. The second thing we're looking at is to ensure that our system is not fluctuating up and down. It is getting to the desired temperature and maintaining that desired temperature. After that, we hit a fork in the road, whereas us engineers would need guidance from business professionals. We can file for a patent application and search. We can patent this technology in order to commercialize it, but that releases our technology to the public. We could either go that or we could take the Coca-Cola secret sauce formula. We don't release our software. Nobody knows what our product is. They can't copy it and take it to market that way. Either way, both leading to creating a supply chain and generating purchase orders for commercialization. Then we lead into expansion opportunity. How much data are we collecting? We can collect data on humidity. We can collect data on airflow into the room, outside air temperatures, to give our machine learning a better picture on how to make people more comfortable. Not only that, going forward with commercialization, we are ditching the RFID. The RFID was perfect for testing and validation. However, getting the data into your phone via Bluetooth connection, then having your phone distribute the data to a cloud base allows us to have more users with more inputs at one time. Then changing our hardware. We could change it to include not the standard 2-foot by 2-foot diffuser in a building, but include home diffusers, create a home system for yourself, ultimately collecting more data. So as an investor, what are you investing in? A very simple, unique design that can be universally put into any 2-foot by 2-foot diffuser with a simple duct transition if the duct diameters are not matching up. It can be easily installed. We're not requiring an electrician to come in and run wires. This can be done by the building maintenance manager in less than an hour. It can be up and running. This can be marketed as energy savings. As we enter into a night or unoccupied mode, we can reduce the airflow to a minimum, decreasing the BTUs entering into the room, letting the air handler slow down using less energy. Ultimately, using data collection, we can then sell that data. FSU, for example, is using data in a very unique way to predict their occupancy sensors and repurpose rooms that are not being occupied and trying to find new ways to use them. It is absolutely unimaginable ways that people are using data and would use our data.
So, you know what temperature you like?
Now your AC system does too.
Questions? You guys can come up.
So you talked a little bit about installing the diffuser. I wonder like how much that is going to cost a building manager. But my other and more important question is, what's the impact on heating and cooling costs of this? Because you've got a problem that me as the occupant of the space, the consumer, understands, but the building manager or the person who's paying the bills for the heating and air conditioning is only going to care about the impact on the cost. So have you looked at that?
So in terms of predicting how much energy savings, it is almost impossible to do that. Even major corporations that do this every day struggle with getting accurate numbers generated. If you want to tell a company that, or a building maintenance manager, I will save you X amount of dollars, that's impossible. It won't happen. You cannot, it's almost impossible to physically measure and get an X amount to a degree of accuracy. We can accurately state we are saving energy by decreasing airflow into a room. How much energy, we can't accurately state. But there is more value for the building maintenance manager, because as tenants are calling him, he gets annoyed, the tenants are annoyed. Obviously that's a lose-lose situation. If you can decrease that and say, if he has specific tenants that are always unhappy, put the system in them, put the system in their rooms to make them happy, it makes the relationship look a little bit better between the maintenance manager and the tenant.
Yeah. And as well as the energy savings without the specific number, that takes away from productivity of the users in the office. Number one, calling them, that takes time from them, first of all, and from the office manager. And then two, the productivity decrease of just being uncomfortable in the place that you're at all day. So that's pretty much.
I think it's a brilliant product, a simple product. I see all kinds of benefits with it. Hard to imagine someone else didn't come up with this idea too. So I don't know if you've done any preliminary patent searches or
ma'am.
what's going on out there.
So no
to address
preliminary
this.
patent searches. However, product relation, there are 3 variable air volume diffusers on the market today. The first one uses a mechanical system. It is very similar to the temperature or the thermometer that your car uses. This system is very hard to adjust set points on and has no predictability. The second style is a variable air volume diffuser with a wall thermostat. This requires running power through the building to a wall set, mounting the stat. You have to get electricians to do this, not an easy installation, no predictability. The third one is using what's called backnet communication. Backnet is a communication protocol that goes to the front end, where a building maintenance manager gets to see, okay, these are all my diffusers, these are their positions, but it does not give the end user the control that is desired. Our system is unique in the fact that we do not have a wall thermostat. It is tailored for the end user and not the building maintenance manager, and it can be installed within an hour.
Hey, John.
Oh, go ahead, Gary.
John, so you're talking about controlling the airflow only. What about the temperature?
So if we wanted to control temperature, we could do electronic reheat. That's going to require a lot more power. The purpose of this is to use as little power as possible beyond battery operation. That way, no electricity has to be run. This is installed with a battery change every 6 months to a year.
So I think that answered one of my 3 questions, so I'll just do the other 2. What powers the damper? And wouldn't people changing the airflow impact other ducts?
So 1 then 2, using a battery power, so they can be installed without running the power to it, because then you have to hire an electrician that knows what they're doing. Using a battery power to control the damper as well as the microcomputer. As far as impacting other ducts, yes, we will impact other ducts. This will increase the static pressure in the duct, forcing more air out the other vents. How we solve this, how we thought about this, as more air gets pushed into that other room, one room's gonna have the thermostat. That room's gonna get more air, right? It's going to cool off. The thermostat's going to recognize that, and it's going to deviate from its set point. the box, the variable air volume box that serves these string of rooms will then decrease the airflow into that box. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. I just don't know if it's going to do what you think it's going to do.
So as air is entering into space, we measure the air entering through this variable air volume box in the ceiling, not at the diffuser level. So as we plug up one diffuser, more air comes out into the space where there is a thermostat that is controlling it. As that temperature decreases and deviates from the set point, it sends that information to the variable air volume box that then automatically controls the air so it reaches or it maintains that desired set point.
Have you tested that?
No, sir.
Okay.
John, another question. A lot of office buildings are going to open workspaces. So how is that going to affect your product when you have multiple people with different chips indicating different desires for the temperature?
So this product is for a single office type space. I'm sure many of you have your own office. If you have an open space, it would be hard. It's not impossible to have variable air volume diffusers in an open setting. However, then we're running communication wire to each one so that they know what the other one is doing. That's not necessarily in our scope. That would be kind of a different product. Not to say that we couldn't do it and expand into that market, but right now our market is strictly single offices that have tenants that are unhappy. Yes, sir.
Well, I have a question, or do you, Mandy? Oh, she's formulating. Have you thought about the residential market? And here's why I'm asking. This is such a stupid question. So I recently built a house in a climate that gets cold that I have never lived in before. And it's a 3-story house and it's the dumbest thing. There are dampers, and in different seasons you go down into the basement and they had to label them, and you get up on a ladder and you move the stupid lever, and then you're either freezing or hot in the basement or upstairs. It never works. And so I spent gazillions amounts of money to buy little temperature sensors for my Arlo that follow me, not my Arlo, my Ecobee, that follow me around the house to try to keep me the same temperature. Would this work in a house, and have you thought about that as a market?
So yeah, in order to enter into that market, we have to change our hardware. We're currently designing a standard 2-foot by 2-foot air diffuser that you'd see. We can change our hardware, maintaining the same software, and put it in. The unique thing about our product is we're not using math to reach a zero air state. We're using machine learning. So that machine can then learn the new environment that it's in.
So I think I have comments more than questions.
Okay.
First, you mentioned needing to get business-oriented people involved at some point. I would say you probably should do that sooner rather than later. Secondly, you did a really good job of making clear to us why this would benefit us as occupants in an office facility. But I think you need to focus a little more on why the office managers or property managers would buy into this. Maybe you're paying this person X dollars a year to sit and get complaints about Sarah and Jane wanting different temperature, but our product will solve that for you at a lesser amount, something like that. That's all.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
In following up to that, just one comment in future presentations. You had a very engineering-oriented response to the question as to whether you could quantify the productivity increase or anything like that. You need to consult with the marketing department because they will have a very different viewpoint, and there are estimations all the time. They don't have to be accurate.
Okay.
Not expect, that's why it's called an estimate.
Okay.
And so you really need to embrace that.
To put a number on that specifically?
Yeah, and to step out of your engineering mindset and accept that there are reasonable and then discounted expectations set into future predictions.
Okay, thank you very much.
But great presentation.
Yeah, absolutely, and very creative solution to a problem that we've all had. Here's one comment and then question. My one comment is your value proposition is to end users, but we're not those end users aren't necessarily your customer.
Yes.
So I think we've heard it a couple of times. Why would a building manager do this outside? I know you've answered it, but just really thinking that through, and I actually want to get to my question. Have you developed a working prototype or MVP for this yet?
Currently still testing, currently still working on developing it. We've been really focusing on our software at this point. The hardware on this is very straightforward, very easy. I'm not worried about actually controlling something moving up and down. I hope as an engineer I can do that. This software is really where we will get stuck in the weeds and to ensure that this works. And testing and validation is going to be the whole thing to ensure that this works.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael Bennard. I'm a recent graduate of FSU and the co-founder of Nightcap. Today, I'm here to tell you about an unsolved problem that keeps getting worse with no end in sight. Drink spiking and date rape have become an epidemic in today's society, especially on college campuses. There are constantly stories of women being drugged and sexually assaulted at bars, and many of these stories often go unreported. But before I tell you about my product, let me get a little bit more into how big this problem actually is. When I first started this company, I don't think I really understood the magnitude of how big this problem was. So we went out and did a survey of 100 women, 18 to 25, and we found that 26% claim that they've had their drink spiked. Alcohol.org said that 56% of women have unknowingly had their drink spiked. We've also found in our survey that 76% of women 18 to 25 are worried about being spiked when they go out. So what's the current, what do women currently do? They put their napkin over their drink, they put their hand over their drink, they put their phone on top of their drink when they go to the bar. But why hasn't there been a solution on the market to prevent drink spiking that is scalable? It's because A, they're not affordable, and B, they're not convenient enough. So we went out and created Nightcap, the drink spiking prevention scrunchie. And I apologize, I thought there were 4 judges, but from last time. Yeah. Yeah. Here, one for each of you. So. Nightcap is a drink spiking prevention scrunchie. It's ultra convenient and affordable. Wear it out on your wrists, in your hair to the bar, and just pull it right out of its pocket. Cover over your drink to prevent from being drugged. Okay, so it's washable, reusable. It's $11.99 on our website. And basically what we're doing is implementing a new functionality into an already successful product. Forgot this. So it can be worn as a wristband and a hair tie, and it acts as a physical and psychological deterrent. And I have a video for you here. All right, so far, a little bit about our story. Nightcap was actually invented by my 16-year-old sister, Shira, as seen up here. This was the original prototype that she made. She cut up my mom's pantyhose and made this little thingy here. I came home from school and I saw it and I said, you know, with a little bit of work, this could be, something I think will work. We launched an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign and got attention from Fox Business. We went to New York City and were interviewed on Fox Business. Our Indiegogo, we did a successful Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign. We raised over $12,000. And since December 16th, through one revenue stream on one channel, with almost no marketing, just free PR and word of mouth, we've done over $8,500 just since December. So that's about over $20,000 total. We've delivered 1,400 units across the country. We have almost 300 pre-orders for wholesale in just pharmacies, which is probably our least, the least of our focus, but we have about 300 pre-orders from pharmacies. And we've won Jim Moran microgrant, first prize in the turkey tank and first prize in Tallahassee Startup Week. All very exciting. And for the future, we have big plans for this. We're going to be outsourcing it overseas to reduce costs by 50%. We have a quote for a landed cost of $220, which will allow us to wholesale this as a unique promotional item to liquor companies, bars, clubs, to be able to put their logo on this and show that their organization cares about women's safety while also having their logo on every drink that it's used on. We also see this in college bookstores with college logos, of a college ambassador program, and see it in large retail and liquor stores. Oops. And okay, we have one more video. Do I hit it?
Demonstrate how a nightcap works. First, take it out of your hair or off of your wrist. Pull the drink cover out from its pocket inside the sweatshirt. Now, cover it over your drink. Nightcap fits great over most cups and glasses, but it may not fit well on very small or thick. Then, either hang the scrunchie off of the side of the glass or wrap it around the bottom. Finally, put a straw through the straw hole and you're ready to drink safe. Once you're finished with your drink, simply remove the drink cover and tuck it back into your pocket and scrunch it. And remember, never leave your drink unattended.
So I think the biggest thing about this is there's two ways to use this. There's some people that are going to go out and put this on every single drink that they use. And there's also going to be people who just want to wear it out. And maybe if they find themselves in an uncomfortable situation, maybe they're in a crowded club, maybe there's creepy guys hitting on them, they have this on them and makes them feel comfortable that at any time they can just take it off and cover over their drink. And it's a formal replacement for a napkin or your hand, because women get drugged while they're holding their drink. It's almost impossible to catch, and no one ever gets caught because it's that fast. So I'm out of time for Q&A.
Okay, well, I have a question.
Okay.
So it has a straw hole. How many drinks come with a straw?
So you can almost always ask your bartender for a straw, probably 95% of bars. So it's mostly for liquor drinks. You can use it with beer if you want, like a draft beer. Obviously, not everyone is going to be willing to drink draft beer with a straw, but most liquor drinks will either come with the straw or you can ask for a straw. And we also now offer metal straws on our website that you can purchase with it.
Michael, tell us about the competitive products out there.
So in terms of successful competitive products, there's basically nothing. There's nothing that's affordable and convenient, right? This is wearable, which there's nothing else like that. There's a My Cup condom, which is a latex thing that recently went viral on TikTok.
Gross.
That's what it's called, My Cup condom. You have to buy them. It's like $14 for 12, and you have to use one per drink. So once you run out, you have to buy them over and over and over again. You throw this in the washing machine, and you can just use it over and over again on every drink. So $11.99 for one time, or $13.99 for over and over and over and over again.
You mentioned that there are no other successful products out there. How do you know this is successful?
So the difference is the convenience and affordability of it. I think by being able to wear it, no one's going to carry a plastic lid around with them. It's just not, people just aren't going to do it. By implementing this into an already successful product, it creates you can wear it out and not even use it, but you still have it on you just in case. So, and we've kind of validated it. We've sold 1,700 so far. So I think, a lot of people agree.
No, I know. I think it is successful in that you've sold them, but how do you know it's actually preventing spiking?
I mean, the good thing is that we haven't heard anything. So if we're not hearing anything, that means it's doing its job.
Fair.
So yeah, and there's almost no statistics on drink spiking. It's so few because it's so hard to catch, and that's why this is important. So I don't know if we'll ever really know how well it actually works, but.
Sure.
And where are you currently sourcing the materials from?
So we ordered 4,000 units, and they were manufactured in Dallas. I mean, the materials were from everywhere. The fabric was from California. We had a whole supply chain. We're moving to a different supply chain now overseas to reduce cost by 50%, to have margins to sell it on Amazon retail and customized wholesale.
And you mentioned the branding and customization. Where are you in discussions with universities or companies? With that?
So we're actually going to be attending a bar and nightclub trade show at the end of March. Hopefully it doesn't get canceled from the coronavirus, because that's supposed to be our big coming out party. We're gonna go for liquor brands like Bacardi's going to be there, White Claw. Our goal is to get a couple huge liquor companies to come out and buy tens of thousands of these and use it as a marketing tool. Yeah. I mean, I haven't actively gone out and tried to do any wholesale aside from just selling to some pharmacies, because we had a free opportunity to do that. I'm waiting until we have the outsourced product to be able to do that, because I don't have enough product to go out and do that right now. But I've had people reach out to me trying to get them, and I have I make a list of interested people, because I just can't sell them yet.
I really like the idea of it as a promo item and being able to customize it. I think that is actually a really brilliant move.
Thank you. Yeah.
The only thing I will warn you about is these are very hot right now. They are going to be absolutely hated in about 5 years, because that's what happened in the 80s. They were awesome until they weren't, and then they were made fun of for a long, long time. So I would just say, find something else too, besides the company.
Yeah. Our ultimate goal, and we're actually in talks with As Seen on TV for potential, we want to get an exclusive licensing deal and just be able to have a larger company come and license it and distribute it themselves, and that would be the ultimate goal.
Along the lines of customer corporate gift businesses are also a really good target market for you. I think that this would be great for any company to give out as a little freebie at a convention or something, how they give out stress balls and stuff. I think you could just do gangbusters in that area as well.
Yeah, exactly. So promotional items, they don't really mean anything. They're just branding. This is a unique opportunity to show that your organization actually cares about women's safety, and you get the branding aspect. So I think it's kind of revolutionary in a promotional item standpoint. And we've had interesting things too. I had someone buy 100 of them for bachelorette gift baskets. They're making different type of women's, they put different women's products in it, and they're putting one of these in every one.
You might have mentioned it, but if so, can you repeat it? What is your current profitability on this? How much are you selling them for versus the current cost, and then cost after you get the new outsourcing?
So we sell them for $11.99 on our website right now. We actually sell 4-packs for $39.99, and they're actually our most popular. Over 50% of our sales are 4-packs. So we bring a customer in and they spend $40 on our site instead of $12. It makes a big difference. It cost us in Texas, it cost us $4.40 a unit, which was way too high. I wanted to make them in the US, but I wanted to just validate the product before I go out and find supply chains in other countries. So, but I have a quote right now for $2.20 landed. So packaged, printed on, made fabric, everything shipped here for $2.20. So yeah.
How many units do you have to purchase to get that price?
That would be 10,000 units. If at 5,000 units, it was $2.60. No, $2.30 for 5,000, $2.60 for 3,000.
So I think you're going to be very successful with this. I think it's a great idea. And I apologize to the other judges because I think I've made more comments and questions throughout the process. On presentation, I think you should practice speaking in front of people about this more. Practice as much as you can so that you're comfortable talking in front of people. And also, I'd like to see a woman with you talking about this.
My sister, me and my sister run it, and she's been with me in every media appearance and everything. You know, she's in high school, so she couldn't make it up here. But
Understandable.
no, I definitely. She's the face of the company. I'm just the person in the back.
Very good. All right. Hi, guys. Shh. So we're going to get started. Thank you all for coming and being a part and presenting the at the business model conference. I can't talk. I'm really bad at this. Fun fact. I skipped through this whole PowerPoint earlier today, but thank you all to our judges. And I wanted to go through and have them announce all the winners. But first off, Ken Baldoff, the director of the Innovation Hub, will now announce the team who will be representing Florida State University at the ACC InVenture competition at NC State University.
What a great morning we had here today. Across the board, everybody is telling me that the level of competition here, the level of the pitches is just getting better and better every year. You're going to hear this from everybody. And it was exciting to see the pitches. Judging gets more and more difficult every year. We had so many great and varied businesses that were pitched here today. Everybody did a great job. Now the ACC InVenture Prize, my notes are here on my business card. The ACC InVenture Prize is coming up April 14th and 15th. It's going to be at North Carolina State this year. In all 15 universities in the ACC, which we typically associate with sporting events, are going to be judging new businesses and entrepreneurship. So more and more the ACC is getting involved in entrepreneurship and innovation. And it's really exciting to bring FSU's talent to this Shark Tank to see how we fare there. And the competition is tough. In fact, the criteria is slightly different for bringing a team to the ACC than it is for winning the InNOLEvation Challenge, because this competition is very heavy on technical innovation. They want to see things, that are inventions of the students. Intellectual property is huge. It has to be an original idea of the student team. The distance the students have gone through the entrepreneurship pathway is important. They have to see a prototype. And so these things play into the ACC competition, but not necessarily into the InNOLEvation Challenge. So we use this competition here to identify the talent. And from that talent pool, we have a separate set of judges, Cesar Rodriguez, Mike Devine, and myself, who evaluate these pitches and decide which one will fare best at the ACC competition. And it was difficult this year, but we did finally come to agreement on one team. And the team we'll be taking to the ACC InVenture Prize this year is Virtual Lens. That's okay, you guys can stay right there. Congratulations, I have no big check for you. I don't even have a certificate. I'm gonna come around and shake your hands though, and we need to meet real soon.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, so the judges will now individually announce the winners of each category. There will be a photo after each announcement with the lovely checks that are back here. And just because I already forgot the order, I'm going to announce it again. So finalists, social, spirit, most viable, scalable, and innovative, and then the grand prize. So the first one would be presenting by Mandy Cohen.
Let me first just say this was such a great experience. I am so happy that I was invited to be a judge. And I have the pleasure of announcing the finalist teams. The two finalist teams are Sway Aid and Jammer Modular Music Workstation, and they will both receive $500.
The next is Mark. You are the next person to announce the Social Impact Award.
So for this award, this is for the most potential impact for social and environmental good. There was lots of great people and presentations based on that. It makes my heart happy to see that this is an increasing valid or increasing value of the up and coming businesses. This year's award-winning social enterprise is Jacob Gottlieb from Aura Biotechnologies.
So next up, we have Jody for announcing the Spirit of Entrepreneurship Award.
Well, I would like to thank all of the student participants for letting me do this every year. I think you're all wonderful. So spirit of entrepreneurism to me means identifying a problem, finding a solution, understanding what your market is, actually turning it into something that monetizes that solution and building it into a business, and hopefully maintaining it and growing it. So this year's winner for Spirit of Entrepreneurship Award goes to Sungrown Bakery.
So our next judge, Mr. Gary Brand, will announce the winner for the most viable.
Good afternoon. The winner of the most viable, and this time you will get a check, is Virtual Lens.
So next we have David White coming up to announce the winner for the most scalable.
All right, the winner of the most scalable, starting at FSU, coming to a high school near you, MathLogic.
And we're next going to have Tracy Cohen come up and announce the winner for the most innovative.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you again for having me today. This is a really honor to see all of you. It gives a lot of hope for the future. Congratulations to Airwise, the winner of the $4,000 Most Innovative Award.
And now we will have Elizabeth Scott come up and announce the grand prize winner.
I want to thank everyone for coming here today and to putting your hearts and souls into this competition. It's just been an honor to be a part of this process and to see this talent out here and know that our future's in good hands. Y'all deserve a big congratulations for all of your efforts. Want to reiterate that this year was extremely difficult to boil it down to just one grand prize winner. That said, I'm very pleased to announce that the first place winning team receiving $10,000 award from Mark K. Scott Infinity Funds goes to Michael Bernard of Nightcap. And his sister.
Awesome. Congratulations, everybody. And I know we just did this, but again, seriously, please give a round of applause to all the participants. You guys did amazing. I also wanted to thank Mark Scott and Mrs. Elizabeth Scott for donating the first place prize. And I wanted to also say, please join me in giving all of our judges a round of applause. You guys are all amazing. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. Get really excited. We have stuff for you.
And while Caitlin's still working, I got to thank her because this wouldn't have happened this year without Caitlin. She has completely picked up the ball that I dropped. So thank you. Next year, she's going to do it all without.